Welcome. I'm here with Tina Graziano, and we are here to talk about law of vibration tonight. It's just going to be Christina and I. So we're going to have what I call a living library conversation, which is wonderful because we're going to demonstrate a little bit how we can invest time in each other in these one-on-one conversations. So before I let Tina introduce herself, I'm going to just give a shout out to Randy and Easier Ways. All of these recordings, we kind of consider Easier Ways an affiliate partner. So it's a wonderful community where people are just helping each other, supporting each other, silence their inner critic, and help each other to maybe healing is the right word. Randy just informed us last week that he is now 18 years sober. And what Brandy and I and others in my world have in common is that we're trying to introduce the 12 principles of of the healing process, of the recovery process, to just help us connect with spirit or connect with something, connect with community. Please check out Easier Ways. Before I talk a little bit about my background and where we've been on this journey so far, let's introduce you to Tina. And Tina, just however much time you want to take, what would you like us to know about you at this moment? Oh, and there's Charles. And what is alive for you right now?
Hi, Mike. Thank you. My name's Tina. I'm a multidimensional healer. Um, we're just finding a path to heart-led leadership. And the burning for me right now is we're, I don't know, I feel like we're like lighting a path. And
Mhm.
it's exciting and there's not sure. Yeah, I'm being in the present and noticing um heart led where we're supposed to be. And I have the vision of there, and I'm enjoying the experience of getting there, is what I'm currently like working through, probably. Just enjoying the experience. It's such a beautiful thing to be here. And mm, the more you tap in, the more that becomes apparent, and with the awareness of that. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. Yeah, what's really alive for me in receiving your introduction here is just how important heart-centered leadership is. And when we talk later tonight, especially about the law of vibrations and the feelings and the expression about that, the difference between collaborative spaces as being heart-centered, uh, in contrast to competitive environments, which seem to be very much head-led, head-centered. So that's something that was alive for me in your introduction. So I want to welcome Charles. Hi, Charles. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing okay. I was confused, I have to
Mhm.
admit. I got mixed up on the link for tonight's meeting, and then I was in the middle of a debate kind of it got a little cantankerous or a little
Mhm.
around I'm getting older, and so we're thinking about, what's that going to look like? Where are we moving? And we're deciding we're kind of we've been living together for 35 years, and we're like, I I want to move to an apartment. I don't want to live anywhere where I have to take care of anything. And
Mhm.
my roommate's like, I don't know if I want to live in an apartment. That means we're gonna have to live separate. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. And I already said I didn't want to talk about stuff like that because I feel like like sometimes when you feel like you're in a space of whatever
Mhm.
you whatever your decisions are, they're they're met with some kind of friction.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I'm kind of that's kind of like where I feel like I'm at. And so I said, I just don't feel like I want to even talk about it right now because I don't feel like I'm in a good place.
Mhm.
And and so we ended up talking about it anyway, and it didn't go to a good place.
Mm, gotcha.
So it gets messy, and I'm like, I gotta find this meeting. I'm going to a meeting, and I just got up and walked away. Um,
Well, I'm hoping that as we go through tonight's conversation and kind of really demonstrate being authentic and understanding vibration, the law of vibration. I hope that we can get to a place where authentically uh, you can find a place where there might be some clarity. I don't know. So we'll explore that.
yeah.
For that.
But thank you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, often we start a lot of these meetings with the question, how are you arriving? Which means, just how are you feeling? And what are you bringing? Meaning, what is your intention for tonight? So I'll start that check-in here by first introducing myself. My name is Mike Schumann. If you've been following along in this series, this is the sixth in a series of 12 recordings called the Natural Law and Regenerative Economies series. So we're about halfway there. We are at the halfway point at this point. So I am an inner spiritual minister, and my mission is to help others understand natural law so that we can accomplish the forgiveness of all debt. And I do that by helping people understanding time banking. I'm going to talk a little more about time banking here tonight. But time banking really makes universal basic income possible. And the way to do that, the way to kind of get from here to there, from A to B, is to help create more collaborative environments, understanding how competitive environments work, and then start to kind of change the nature of the conversation to make them more collaborative. So that's my mission, and my 2 year healing project is healing through the spoken word. And that's why I've been wanting to establish a living library where people can really just talk to each other without the pressure of having to perform or convince or debate, and really just hold space for each other so that healing can be present. So I am arriving tonight feeling appreciative because one of the things that I want to advocate for is that you don't need a big audience. You don't need to knock yourself out trying to get a million people in to a conference or something like that, to be valuable. There are 3 people here tonight, and that's more than enough. It's about quality, not about quantity, because as we move on in this series, I'm going to demonstrate how it's the quality of the conversations that reverses the debt, that reverses, kind of like the what I call, and please forgive me if this sounds heavy-handed, what I call the psychological slavery, world. So it's by the deeper relationships that I feel that we can kind of loosen those chains and then throw off those chains. So is to my intention tonight is to really explore the law of vibration. And what that means is that everything is energy. Well, what does that mean? So we'll go a little bit deeper into that later tonight. But I'm going to turn it back to Christina at this time. And I'm going to ask you, Christina, how are you arriving and what are you bringing?
I'm arriving excited, curious. Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects. So, um, I'm curious to see the governmental side, and I'm curious to see where this conversation goes. I'm happy to be able to see what you've been doing with it, because you've been working on it a minute. I've been hearing. Um, yeah, I'm completely present, and hopefully we got some good stuff. Um,
Very good.
excited,
Very good.
and great and
Christina,
grateful.
excellent. I wanted to ask. I forgot to ask you this, but you gave a talk, a presentation a couple of weeks ago. Do you happen to have that presentation that you had given to Circle of Miracles as a seed a few weeks ago?
I do.
Oh
You
yeah.
want it?
Yes, just in a moment. Okay. Yep. So we'll go to Charles. Charles, how are you arriving and what are you bringing?
Um, so I'm arriving, I'm still not feeling 100% well. So I'm frustrated with that. So I'm arriving with some frustration, but also arriving in a space of gratefulness.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that I can bring something that I can add something to what it is you're doing. Um, and be in the plus column. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Great, great, Charles. Just you being here is in the plus column. Just your presence. And while I'm there as well too, is because whenever you or anybody watching this, is viewing and receiving and bringing, kind of like being receptive to what we're talking about, being a part of the conversation, whether you're here with us live or whether you're watching the recording, all of it is time that is taken out of what I call the extractive system or the extractive economy and being put into a regenerative system. So this is usually when I remind anybody who's watching this, if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank, please remember to log all the time that you're watching this presentation and all of the presentations as a service you are providing. So as we go on here in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to show you how that data, when you account for all of the time that you are watching this material and other factors as well, will start to contribute to a different financial system. So we're kind of setting that up one little piece at a time, and tonight's going to be another little piece. But I just wanted to remind everybody that if you are a member of the Time Bank, please remember to log this time. This will be about an hour and a half presentation. Uh, Log an hour and a half as service you are providing under the category of workshops presentations. So with that, Tina, I would love for you to share again what you had spoken about because I think it really ties into the law of vibration. And Charles and I are just going to listen, and we're going to have a living library conversation with you, which means we're just going to reflect back what resonates and ask clarifying questions. So Tina, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. Everything is in a constant state of vibration, holding, transmitting that frequency. We are multidimensional beings. The quickest way to explain that is with one thought of the past or future, our bodies are transported to that time. Mentally, emotionally, energetically, and physically. You can feel this shift in your physical body, in your belly, in your chest as your breathing changes. Shame holds the lowest, densest frequency we can admit, with authenticity vibrating the highest. Given this information, it's no wonder that many great practices are centered around the present moment, our breath, and strengthening our senses. It has been said, the present is the only place God truly exists. I realized years ago the only time I was physically sick was when I was sad, more specifically, dwelling on something in the future, an outcome I couldn't control. It's healthy to feel and process our emotions. This is done in cycles, exactly what you're ready for presently. Your higher self won't take you anywhere unsafe to your four bodies. But when we get stuck there, in shame, guilt, wanting to change the past. We call this not accepting reality. That's when the system manifests physically. We don't see anything in our physical body that wasn't manifested from the top down, the mental body down. A lot of our population operate in the freeze mode. After the system fluctuates between fight or flight for so long, as a protective measure, our system introduces freeze. In this mode, all emotions are like clicked off, dulled, manifesting disease in the body. Our emotions are an alert system, per se. We are creators. Our thoughts create our experience here. Reminds me of a quote by Jesus: "Your faith has healed you. Go and sin no more." I hear that as the movement you made by coming to me triggered your internal healer. Go and change your behavior because what you've had so far has led to the disease. We don't need to tear down the house of cards. It will fall on its own. Empower yourself. Take your attention away from the ones that want to lie, manipulate, cover up for your own good, safety, and protection. Secrets can't stay secrets in the age of information. We put our attention on what we can do. We take back our power. This isn't about protests. We are speaking of not acknowledging it at all. Accessing your own truth, your personal power, being your own authority. Put your attention on that you want to create. The systems within naturally foster this. Put your attention on the spark of divinity that exists. New systems are being created. Within each and every one of you is the power to create. Focus on the desire you have for massive changes in our world. We create in the 5D to be manifested in the 3D.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Comes up for me receiving that again, Tina, and I've been, new nuances are popping out at me this time around as well too. Where I see a lot of common ground and what's really resonating with me in the beginning of your talk, how shame is kind of like the kind of identified as kind of like that lowest point of separation or feeling separate. That's me kind of changing the interpretation just a little bit of separateness, where authenticity, you put authenticity as kind of like the highest frequency, where there is more expansive consciousness and connection, being connection with source. That's what I received this time around. So I wanted to reflect that back to you. That's very alive for me, in that. So that's the biggest thing jumping out at me as pertaining to our conversation tonight. So I'll also ask Charles, is there anything you would like to reflect or ask about what Tina had just offered here?
Um, yeah, so around the vibration and um I just want some clarification around, did you say or did I hear um like our thoughts create what we have or what we do or who we are? I wasn't sure about that, if that's what you said.
Yes. So I don't know. One of the most amazing things, like through my studies of sound vibration, like sound therapy, everything holds a frequency and it's like lower and higher. What was the last question?
So I was asking if around your thoughts, it do your so if you have thoughts that aren't So if your thoughts are good, but things are going crappy,
Yeah.
I'm like, so how is that equal? So
I was trying to,
that's
yeah.
I was wondering what you were saying around that. And did I hear did I make something up or did you speak to that?
Mm, mm,
No, so the healing modality we work with the mental body, the emotional body, the energetic body, and then the physical body. They're all connected. And my example of that is, yeah, if you think of like something that makes you sad, upset, or whatever, you can feel it. You get tense. So it's denser. Um, the lower the vibration, the denser it is. You can actually feel this, but like that's only in our physical body. Like it's happening everywhere. And the mental is what controls it because it's a hierarchy. And that has been found in other like studies that I've done. With all like um, that's just physics. There's a hierarchy in like energy can't be transported, but it can be modified.
mhm.
Okay, anyway. um,
What I wanted to kind of repeat back and try and get some clarification on, can I do that, Mike?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Is around so the vibration and so when so the authentic versus the shame piece. And so I find that sometimes in my authenticity, I am in touch with those feelings of sadness and anger and happiness and joy. And in that sadness and anger comes the crying or comes lashing out at people sometimes that maybe deserve it or don't, or lashing out at myself. But that is part of my authentic self. If I stay stuck like I did years ago in my shame self, which I have out, I've integrated that and have outgrown that. Um, there was no room for any of that because I was so stuck in the shame. There was no expression of expansion. So the authentic piece, being the higher vibration, for me allows those denser parts of the sadness and the anger. So I feel like that's kind of what I heard from you, but kind of felt like maybe not.
You
So
just
that's all I was
explained. You
clarifying.
just explained to me your beautiful healing process, and that's like, yeah, I've always been like authentic to like an annoying, like to other people, like annoying and like just like, but that's different traits I have. Like I want to know why, and like it's just more like a curious type of thing. But and then like, oh, like, and there's all those mistakes, and that's what we learn, and that's how we get better. Like then I was doing the authentic thing before I learned about wise speech and wise action, and a lot of other things that I practice. In my life, like that's how I live. But that I learned other places.
Okay, so
Um,
I hear you. I hear what you're saying is there can
it's
be
mess.
both. There is
It's
both.
messy. It's messy. It's
Yeah.
not. But the actual frequency, like our society, you hear unconditional love, like, and the real unconditional love, like that's the heart chakra. But
Yes.
it gets more than that. When your heart chakra is open, then you can then you can do the authenticity, and not and have integrity, and like, because once you start like change, like your actions change. It's just a beautiful process, and I appreciate the way you explained that. Because people, I don't know, it's messy too. Like it's not all love and light,
Oh yeah. It's not linear, that's for sure.
and it's not linear, and it's layers. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Was
Thank you
that
for
good?
helping with that. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, what comes up for me as well too, as we're speaking about, yes, it's not linear. A lot of the things that I've been exploring myself recently now is the fact that it is more kind of like a spectrum or a wave of different feelings that's there to integrate. And I was talking to Tina before you came on, Charles, as well, that I feel like the the competitive environments that we're in, it seems like there is that hierarchy where you're trying to beat somebody or be better than somebody else or try to drive try to aggrandize yourself over others. And I kind of feel like that's kind of like the representative of the masculine sword or pyramid, where the energy as it rises up, it kind of gets constrictive. And that's where I personally feel those feelings that are more on the dense scale, like fear, shame, and guilt. But when you open it up to the emotional hierarchy, where shame and guilt are kind of like at the bottom, but you're integrating feelings. And I like that word that you use, Charles. It's integration. It's not about ascension. It's integrating the
Yeah.
feelings where in the map of consciousness, or what I call the David Hawkins scale, it goes shame, guilt, apathy, fear, desire, anger, pride, courage, trust, willingness, forgiveness, then reason or clarity, love, joy,
Mm,
peace, enlightenment. And that's where I feel like the authenticity starts to come in, around clarity. And that's where when somebody who has integrated those I don't want to call them lower vibrations. I like the word dense, the more dense vibrations. When somebody has truly integrated it, they can come across as very intimidating or scary for people who have not done that work or who have done spiritual bypassing. And I think that's one of the new discoveries I'm learning here by being in this space as well too, is that authenticity, where I feel my experience of authenticity is being present to the moment, like you said, Tina. God is in the present moment. That can come across very intimidating to someone who is either living in the past or living in the future.
future.
Because anxiety is about fear of the future. And I feel like depression is about regret from the past. But those feelings still need to be integrated. They can't be bypassed in order to be here in the present moment. That's what is coming up for me now, just in my presence of authenticity at the moment.
And I think sometimes you go in and out of each one of those. I don't, for me anyway, I don't feel like I'm like, okay, now I aced this, I'm
Mhm.
good. Now I can go to the next step.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm here today in the present moment,
Mhm.
and who knows where I'm going to be in 10 minutes or 10 days. And, um, you know, and when I'm there in the 10 minutes or 10 days, I'm still going to be in the present moment when I get there.
True.
Um, and if I'm not, then it's looking at some of those other things of, the fear and the unknowing and the, wanting things to be a certain way and all of that kind of stuff. So it's um it's kind of refreshing having this discussion and kind of feeling my own emotions
Mhm.
around, oh gosh, I'm really not in control like I thought I was.
Mhm.
And at the same time, how freeing that is.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Mm,
realizing that I think Brene Brown said something about, and Nit Tot Han, or however you say his name, have both said something and alluded to um, the place of there. It the authenticity comes with a price, um, but it all does. It all comes with a price, and it's I. They said something around realizing that price of realizing the price of shame and realizing the price of being locked into a desperation or anger.
Mhm.
Um, and so when you get to experience some authenticity in that, um, that that comes with some people not so sure that, they're kind of not so sure that um, they wanted the old you. They wanted the person that they knew before. Um, and aren't willing to necessarily be like, okay, we had a big explosion, everything blew up, and now we're dealing with the pieces. Let's work through this. I find in my own life, a lot of people kind of jump ship and are like, okay, later, I'm out of here. Um, and so I'm trying to get to a place, and I I hesitate in saying that, especially in this conversation, because trying to get to a place and you're not present. But I want to be in a place where I feel more accepted in myself, whether I'm present or whether people think I'm okay or not. I want to be okay with myself. So,
Mm.
Something that's alive for me, Charles, as I'm receiving, receiving that, especially when I hear that, people want the old me or the old version of me. Also, what Tina was saying as well about being your own authority. A lot of, especially this work I'm doing now, especially with integrating the spirituality with finances, a lot of it is how there's this addiction. I feel like there's this addiction to being an authority or exerting authority over others. But when you're in a space where everybody is equal and you're treating each other peer to peer, you're speaking to each other peer to peer, that's very uncomfortable for people who are addicted, to being in control and exerting authority. So that's something that's very alive for me, in receiving the entirety of this conversation so far. It's almost like the denser vibrations are present when hierarchy or authority is trying to exert itself. But when there's a flow, what we call kairotic flow, of peer-to-peer relationship where everybody in the room has a voice, um, that tends to make authority very uncomfortable, and
yes.
that's something.
And I experienced that with one of my doctors just this past week. I said to him, I don't appreciate how you're treating me. I don't appreciate it. And he got up and walked out.
Mm,
And I I yeah, I was like, wow, I never had that
mm,
experience. Um, but after I got over the shock of it, I felt like it was empowering for me to be able to say, I really don't appreciate this.
mm,
And he was so much into being an authority.
mm,
And that reminded me of what when you spoke, Mike, that I could I could feel that.
mhm,
And I'm feeling that in other circles that I'm involved in, that people who once felt like they had some kind of authority, or they still feel like perhaps they have some kind of authority, somehow get threatened. Um, and there's an uncomfortableness that comes about, and a resistance to talk about it in a way that is honoring to everyone.
Yeah. Reciprocity,
Yeah.
true reciprocity, free flow of energy.
So Mike,
Mhm.
I heard the higher you see, the higher you go up, you can't, like, energy doesn't lie.
Yeah.
So, and the higher you go up, it's all like checks and balance. It's what you should do.
Mhm.
So, so that's how where the cloudiness comes, and that's why they like anybody that's like just good and in power, like, and authentically doing it from a good spot, with good intentions, isn't threatened. But you're like in your
Mhm.
example, that's because that's the minority. So
Mhm.
like that's what I was thinking, and it is the more structure because I mean we're 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 told we're just the scarcity thing. We're told there's
Mhm.
lack, and so then like that's our root chakra stability, and so or whatever our like stability. If you don't do this, like that's the first thing. So
Mhm.
if that's in question, that just blocks anything else from happening.
Yeah.
Um, in competition.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but we know when we have like more than one energy that's like going together and like that energy is going together and it's building it up, it actually it builds it up and it makes
Mhm.
more. So
Mhm.
just like there's like 100, that's another way of thinking why this is just that's just better. But I don't know. I've been telling people we're not overpopulated and we have enough resources, but no,
Yeah.
like so I'm just trying to, yeah, how we get there because and like you can I think we can sample that in the smaller communities where like when the
Mhm.
one farmer somebody grows squash. Well, now that we have enough squash for like blocks of people and everybody's making zucchini, like so, but yeah, so the more of us together, I think is where the enlightenment comes. Like, because I don't know anything about plumbing or making pipes, but some like we all have a piece, and then everybody feels like and then they're authentic, and everybody feels, yeah.
There's two values that come up for me that I brought with me from the time banking world. One value is reciprocity, meaning that that's really natural law, the law of compensation. You get what you give. Um, Law of cause and effect. An action solicits a reaction. But the other value that's really alive for me as well, from that comes from the time banking world, is that there are no throwaway people. There are no throwaway people. There are 8 billion people in this world. And my impression is that, if someone has lived a life of privilege, they can see that those 8 billion people is kind of like a plague. But when you're in a reciprocal relationship with others and you're really looking for their value outside of the hierarchy, they become tremendously valuable. So I think this is a good place for me to do my piece on where we've been so far in this conversation and where we are today. And this will also be right after this. There will be a break in the recording, which will go to my pre-recorded material. But the first month of these conversations in October, we were talking about establishing a living library. How to have the uncomfortable conversations. First, the comfortable conversations, which is really just having appreciation conversations, reflecting back what you hear, and asking clarifying questions. And we started to put some visuals to how to start to have the more uncomfortable conversations across social classes and across the hierarchy, so to speak. Now, this month, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be getting into more of the nitty gritty details about the relationship between finances and time banking. Last week, when we did law of relativity, there was a kind of like a diagram that showed, how constrictive the current market economy is, which is only about 300, only $315 trillion debt. But if we can renegotiate the value of an hour with 8 billion people in the world, we're looking at potentially a $5 quadrillion economy. So it's a lot of energy right now forced in a space that's like 25 times too small, literally 25 times too small. So I'm gonna break here for in a moment here and run some of the material that I recorded a few days ago. But what the material you're about to see is kind of like looking at the financial markets, the stock markets in the language of supply and demand. From the competitive masculine point of view, there's almost like a contrived artificial demand, almost an artificial sense of scarcity. So you'll see here in the upcoming clip about how much energy there is invested in competition, but there's only a certain amount of stock. There's only a certain amount of shares available, which is like 30 times too small. It's too small of a container. So what you're about to see is kind of like the setup of how the current system works. And as we go on in the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue to procure collaborative structures so that we reverse that. I actually put it in a yin yang, how the current system looks, where there's too much, there's too much of an imbalance on the demand side. And when we go through in the next couple of weeks, we're going to show you how to put more of an emphasis on the supply side, which I see more as feminine. So I'm going to break here and let the viewer watch the clip. And so this is the material that I'm covering in Law of Vibration. And the reason why I am covering it here is because it really looks at the relationship between a security, a piece of business, we call it a stock in the stock market, and the relationship between the amount of volume and how much the volume fluctuates, and also that in terms of price, how the price fluctuates. So the reason why I put this in law of vibration is because I will show you this in an illustration in a little bit, but it feels like it's a very constricted area where competition is contrived. It's kind of forced on us. So we're mostly bouncing between greed and fear. So so I'm going to go into a little bit about some basic mechanics with stock markets, so that when we introduce the time banking element in a couple of weeks, you're going to see how we flip the variables so that it's not so much that we're trying to force people into competitive relationships. It's about expanding the market, not in terms of price, but in volume that is available. And the volume that is available is measured in hours, the time that we spend in a time bank. And the living library conversations is just to kickstart those relationships. So, when you're in a relationship and you're building a relationship within a living library, it's not about exchanging services first. It's just about spending time with each other to recognize each other's value. And if that evolves into a relationship where you are exchanging services within a time bank, then the living library has served its purpose. So we're going to take a look at Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent company of Google. So I'm taking this information from a slideshow I did a couple years ago in 2022. So this is not up-to-date information, but I'm putting this up here just to kind of show you the relationship, especially when it comes to big companies or big corporations, the relationship between volume and price and how that affects decisions in a competitive environment. So This is a measurement of the price. So I took a 6 month, just kind of took a snapshot of the 6 months that happened back there in 2022. And so it kind of fluctuated up and down, probably in about a range of about 38%, which we'll see in a moment. Now, these are the shares outstanding. So there's a few billion, there's like a 13 billion, somewhere in the 13 billion. So that fluctuated maybe about 2 to 3%. Here's just a breakdown of it by month back in 2022. So the way I measured it is that the price fluctuated about 38% from its highs to its low over a period of 6 months. Now the volume itself only fluctuated about 5 to 6%, but that's over a 2 year span. Over in a 6 month span, it was even less. It was more like 1.5%. So I put this up to kind of articulate that the price is all over the place. It's what we call expansive, and the volume, doesn't really move a lot. It kind of stays in a very narrow region. We call that stable. It's the volume is stable. So, so I just want to make a note that, when a stock price goes up, eventually, there are stock splits, and then, you have to get 2-for-1 stock split or a 3-for-1 stock split where the volume, it looks like the volume changes, but the price is adjusted with the volume so that, it's really about competing over price. So I use a football field here to kind of make these measurements, but the volume here, this is the 5 to 6% range. So you can see, how much, it's kind of like going about 6 yards. And the price is like going about 38 yards. That's the percentage. So if you can imagine here, I put them in circles. And if you can imagine the big circle represents, like all the competition, all the people, trying to get a share of this company, whether it's Alphabet or Amazon or whatnot. There's like there's this big area of competition, but the volume is only 5 to 6%. And so it's like trying to force all of these people who could fit in that big circle, through the small circle, and that's why things get stressful and things get very competitive. I used a diagram in an earlier recording where we show the market economy as being, like this pyramid, like this little pyramid, but the core economy, which is based on time, is this big massive blob, which is 25 times bigger, than the little one. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make these environments less competitive and more collaborative. So I'm going to show you this yin yang here, and this is going to come up in a future conversation. But the point I want to bring home here is the volume is stable. All right, so that's going to work into our equation here as we go forward. And again, this is all the technical stuff. So that's why I'm doing supplementary material so that we can put it back in after we have the conversations here over the next couple of weeks. So if I'm losing you on this stuff, don't worry about it. This is the technical stuff. This is, kind of like the material that really grounds what we're doing and how to make an impact in the financial markets. So you don't have to understand this to make it work for you. It's just a matter of my trying to communicate to those people who are thinking critically and who do understand the mechanics of finances, why this is viable, why it's viable towards achieving universal basic income for everybody. So the volume is stable. That's the point I wanted to make with this demonstration. So Amazon, we're just going to look at another company. Amazon, again, this is from August 8th, 2022. The pricing, that kind of shows where the pricing had been over the last 6 months. I think that was possibly 60%. We'll see that here in a moment. And the shares outstanding, they kind of fluctuated between 2 to 3% as well. So again, the price 60% all over the place over a 6 months period. So that's a shorter amount of time. The volume only 2 to 3% over 3 years. So the shares outstanding were only about 2 to 3% over the course of 3 years, where the price was 60%. So we'll go back to our football field. Now, the volume at 2 to 3%, when we're going to look at the, the comparison, the ratio, very small, very, very small. Price, 60%. Wow. It's almost the entire length of the field that I have as represented here. We put our little circles in. There you go. It's like a little dot in this massive, massive blob of competition. So it's like trying to fit all that energy that is stored in this big white circle out of the little black circle hole. It's just there's not enough room. It's too stressful. It's too intense. So we'll go back to our yin yang and we'll put in the second part of the equation. The price is expansive. So that's represented by the E, the dollar sign, and the E times V volume, which is stable. So that's going to be the equation that we're starting to work with here. So just to kind of make it bigger to show you, what we're going to do in the next couple of recordings is show you how to reverse those variables, how to make the price stable and the volume expansive, so that we create a whole new market that supports everybody, and it's based on time banking. So we'll talk a little bit more about time banking in 2 weeks.